Welcome to the Sounds of Resistance channel. At the dawn of this morning, very hot news from the Ukrainian front shook the world agenda. Today, an event occurred in Ukraine that changed the history of the war, and the Kerch Bridge connecting Crimea and Russia was bombed. While huge explosions on the Crimean Bridge, Vladimir Putin's most precious, illuminated the twilight of the morning, the Kremlin's greatest fear came true. It is known that the Kerch Bridge connecting Crimea to Russia, which was seen as the heart of Ukraine for Russian President Vladimir Putin and the shelter of the Russian fleet in the Black Sea, was known to be the most critical target. When we go almost 2 months ago, the Russian army carried out very large defensive exercises around the bridge, as the Ukrainian armed forces was actually planning to launch an attack on the Kerch Bridge. Russia, which has delivered a very serious air defense system to the region, has also assigned state-of-the-art defense weapons to the region for the protection of the bridge. Cloud covers and anti-missile jamming systems were placed at certain points on the bridge. Russian generals always had the perception that the bridge would be hit by missiles. However, today it seems that none of these defense efforts of Russia were useful in preventing the attack on the bridge. The attack on the bridge should be seen as the beginning of a great nightmare for Russia in many ways. The loss of the Kerch Bridge by the Russian army, which already has great difficulties in terms of logistics and shipment, means that it's lost the main vein of its shipments. We will examine this issue in more detail. After the attack, Putin and the Kremlin went crazy. While there was a huge reaction from Moscow, it was announced that there was a declaration of war. Let's dive into the very hot details of the collapse of the Crimean Bridge that will drag the world into a new era. In a major blow to Russian President Vladimir Putin, a massive explosion severely damaged the only bridge connecting the annexed Crimean Peninsula to the Russian mainland and paralyzed an important supply route for Moscow's faltering war in Ukraine. The explosion at dawn on Saturday caused parts of the Kerch Strait Road and rail bridge opened by Putin in 2018 to collapse. Images and videos from the scene are shown. The exact cause of the explosion at Europe's longest bridge has yet to be confirmed. Russian officials said a truck exploded, causing parts of the road section of the bridge in the direction of Crimea to collapse. A subsequent fire engulfed a series of fuel tanks on a separate, adjacent track section of the bridge. Russia used Crimean railways to transport supplies to forces in Kherson, and several rail hubs in both Crimea and Kherson were attacked by long-range Ukrainian rockets. The president of Crimea, appointed by Russia, Sergei Aksenov, confirmed that after a massive explosion, 2 spans of the roadbed of the part of the bridge from Krasnodar to Kerch collapsed. At the same time, the fuel tanks caught fire. Now 2 locomotives are approaching to lift the burning train, he said. Video and footage from the bridge show several charred rail fuel trucks. As soon as the fire goes out, it will be possible to assess the extent of the damage to the bridges and pillars, and it will be possible to talk about the timing of traffic restoration, Aksenov concluded. Images of the 19-kilometer bridge shared on social media show part of the vehicle's path has fallen into the waters below the railway bridge. Flames can be seen burning from the wagons above. The bridge spans the Kerch Strait connecting the Black Sea to the Sea of Azov, where important Ukrainian ports are located, including Mariupol. For Russia, the bridge symbolizes the physical reunification of Crimea with the Russian mainland. The bridge carries most of Crimea's needs, such as fuel and goods, and is regularly used to supply weapons and fuel to Russian forces. As we have just mentioned, the destruction of this supply line will completely end the already scarce shipments of the Russian army in the south. This means that the ammunition and weapons in the hands of the Russian army are completely exhausted. Oleg Krinchkov, advisor to the Russian administration of occupied Crimea, said in a statement that work is ongoing to extinguish the fire, adding that the transport belts of the bridge were not damaged. Ukraine, on the other hand, mocked Russia for the explosion, without directly admitting that Ukraine was responsible for the attack. Air defense of the Russian Federation, "Are you sleeping?" they said. They said these remarks alongside a video showing a completely destroyed section of the bridge's path. Russian illegal construction begins to collapse and catch fire. If you build something explosive, it will explode sooner or later. This is just the beginning, said David Arakhamia, head of Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's parliamentary party and a member of Kiev's negotiation team with Russia. However, when the images are examined, war experts also claim that this attack may have been carried out with missiles. As we recall, rumors began to circulate recently about the shipment of 150-mile range HIMARS missiles from the US to Ukraine. In fact, a senior official from the USA openly declared that Kiev wanted these missiles. For this reason, according to some analysts, the Ukrainian armed forces may have carried out this attack with HIMARS. Although this is a seriously unsupported claim at the moment, the possibility is always present. Besides these allegations, Putin immediately instructed a government commission to examine the emergency situation of the Kerch Bridge in Crimea. An official in Crimea blamed Ukrainians for the explosion. Some Ukrainian officials welcomed the incident without taking direct responsibility. The Kiev regime's response to the destruction of civilian infrastructure bears witness to its terrorist nature, said Maria Zakharova, spokesperson for the Russian Foreign Ministry. But this is seen as an inconsistent statement after Russia's attacks on civilian infrastructure since the beginning of the war. Russia has destroyed thousands of Ukrainian civilian infrastructure since February 21st, but has never branded its actions as terrorist acts. The damage to the road bridge appears serious, with a part of the bridge carrying westbound road traffic injured in at least 2 places in the attack. Damage to the rail link is unclear, but several wagons caught fire. The bridge is strategically important as it connects Russia's Krasnodar region to the Crimean Peninsula, which Russia annexed from Ukraine in 2014 in a move condemned by the international community. It's a critical artery in the provision of both the daily needs of Crimea and the provision of the army. In the past few months, dozens of Russian military convoys carrying vehicles, armor, and fuel have used the bridge. If the Russian army is unable to use the bridge, supply lines to forces in southern Ukraine will become weaker, especially when combined with Ukraine's advance south into the Kherson region north of Crimea. After this bridge was destroyed, the supply chain was completely disintegrated, and Kherson could now become a much easier target for Ukrainian armed forces. Considering that Kherson is the Crimean gate, things will be dragged into a much greater chaos for Russia. For this reason, there are allegations in the latest statements that Putin may declare war on Ukraine at any moment. The Kerch Bridge can handle 40,000 cars per day and can carry 14 million passengers and 13 million tons of cargo per year, state news agency RIA Novosti reported. Masked in camouflage with no unit insignia, Russian special forces captured Crimea in a lightning operation in February 2014. Initially, Russia denied that its troops had fulfilled the task. He later admitted that the so-called Little Green Men were indeed Russian troops. The West quickly responded with crippling economic sanctions. After the bridge was opened, the United States condemned its construction as illegal. In fact, last month, a senior U.S. official stated that Crimea is Ukrainian territory and that U.S. weapons could be used in this attack, in case Ukraine attacked the Kerch Bridge. According to the U.S. State Department statement during the construction of the Kerch Bridge, Russia's bridge construction reminds us of Russia's continued willingness to disregard international law. Ukrainian officials echoed these sentiments after the explosion. Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the Ukrainian leader, stressed that Crimea, the bridge, is the beginning. Everything illegal must be destroyed, everything stolen must be returned to Ukraine, and everything occupied by Russia must be deported. Now, dear viewers, our findings and conclusions today are that this is the signal flare of a new era in the war between Ukraine and Russia. The destruction or attack of the Crimean Bridge, which has been expected for 6 months, took place today. It's up to you to interpret the points where the event will go. Take care of yourself and stay safe. Thanks for watching.